Hey everyone, great to be here with you today. Can't wait to get started on another Cabral concept. Episode 2042 today, we're going to be talking about some new anti-aging based research, basically some seminal studies, a bunch of actual laboratories and researchers got together, shared their research, and it was recently published in an article as well in the New York Times, made a lot of press. A lot of people heard about it. I want to explain it, but also help you see what they did not even call out as probably the most significant part to the study. So really quick, I want to share with you this, is that when we look at anti-aging from a conventional medicine standpoint, we're only looking at chronological numbers. That's what conventional medicine doesn't truly understand yet. And I don't understand why, but they don't understand yet. They don't look at biological markers necessarily. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of functional medicine doctors do. A lot of naturopathic doctors do. A lot of integrative health practitioners do. But conventional medicine, they group everyone. And I'm going to share with you the 4 different groups they put everyone in. They do it by age. And so basically say, hey, you're in the same age group, but, listen to this show. I'm guaranteeing you that 50-year-olds that look like this, or they look like this, and they act like this, or they act like this in terms of like energy and vitality, right? Like I literally couldn't fathom it when I was in my 20s, not even in my early 30s, but I would work with private clients and they would be in their 50s. And I would say, how is this person in their 50s? They literally look like they are probably in their 30s and they have as much energy as I do. Like, I don't get this, right? And it was always amazing to me. And now when I look at people in their 50s, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, look at this person, look at what they do in order to stay in this particular shape with this particular energy and just ambition and love of life. Like, that's amazing. But not just that. I have private wellness client all the way into their 90s. And we were working even with one woman, 105 years old, absolutely amazing. I mean, again, like amazing individuals. I have this one client, everybody should have a role model in terms of like their overall, like, what do they want their life to look like? All right, he's in his 80s. I can't give out too much information because I'll know I'm talking about them, but they are active in all different parts of their life. Absolutely amazing in terms of like still business and charity and their health and sports with their grandkids. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm like, well, I know a lot of people in their 60s and 70s, and they're nowhere near what this individual is doing. So I look at that and I say, I get it. Conventional medicine says there's a chronological age. That's basically the number of birthdays that you've celebrated, right? You could be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 plus years old, right? Okay. So, but then there's something called the biological age. I'm going to be talking more about this in definitely future shows. I have a whole anti-aging podcast now, so you can check that out at stephencabral.com/podcast. Just scroll through and you'll be able to see the little image for anti-aging. I'll also link it up today. I'll make it much easier. Anything I talk about today, New York Times article, the studies, you can see that at stephencabral.com/2042. All right. So here's the thing, though. I've known now for about a decade in my practice that you're able to actually look at someone's biological markers. All right. So I'll work with someone. Let's just say they're 55 years old. Okay, 55 years old. Great. What do their biological markers look like? Because I know how many birthdays they've celebrated, 55. But when I look at their biological markers, they could be 65, 75. Because the reverse is true as well. I see some people in their 50s. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, you're in your 50s? It's like, this is not the way that the human body was really meant to age, because you look like that you may be in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. And again, I'm not talking about gray hair or anything like that. No. I mean, your graying of your hair does happen. Like that happens as you begin to age. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your energy. Literally that, people talk about aura, right? I can't see aura. I can't see colors around people. But what I can see is, what is the energy that this person exudes? And they look like that they've been zapped of their life force, their energy, right? And I look and I can see the muscle tone isn't where it should be. What does that mean? Again, we're not talking about vanity. We're talking about then lack of strength, sarcopenia, osteopenia, bone breakdown, right? All the different inflammation that this person might have. And I can see how they walk, and and it is not a fluid walk. It is not a strong walk. This person is more in danger now of falls, right? And when they fall and you break a hip, a lot of people know this. When you break your hip and you go into rehab, a lot of people are never the same. Now, again, I literally know people in their 30s that have had to have a hip replacement because of sports or genetic issues, whatever it might be, and they're back. They're literally, one of my friends, Hassan, I don't know if he's listening right now. He was literally dancing at a wedding 6 weeks after he had his hip replaced. Now, he was in his early 30s when we went to this wedding. Really great guy, athletic, good shape, had his hip replaced. Good to go, right? But again, different types of people. And it goes into chronology, number of birthdays you celebrate versus biology. And you can fix that biology. I meet with people in their 50s and 60s regularly. And when I test their markers for their biology, it can be 10, 20, 30 years left. All right, 30 years less. That's why I want to teach you today why you can't go by conventional medicine thoughts alone. Now, having said that, the research is still very interesting and we should look at it. So I'm going to share with you that research in the 4 groups that everybody falls into. Okay, so this study was done by more than 80 co-authors. I love when people in the industry can get together. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And it was using data on 6,500 people, 6,500, okay? And they ranged in age from 8 days old to 95 years old. And what they found was there's 4 distinct periods of biology and chronology, right, in people's life. Meaning like how old they are, right? And what they're going through. So 80 co-authors of the study combined efforts of 6 labs from data collected over 40 years, answering questions on metabolism over a lifetime. Here is what they looked at. So what they realized was that in infancy, this is the first group, up until age 1, calorie burning is at its peak, accelerating until about 50% above the adult rate. This lasts from ages 1 to age 20. So there's infancy till 1, extremely fast metabolic rate. Why? Growing extremely quick. Then there's ages 1 to 20. Now, again, we're just finding out about the study now. If you go back years ago, I did a podcast called, it's under my Ayurvedic podcast, and it was like the phases of life in Ayurveda. I'll link it up for you today. But it's uncanny because remember, this is state-of-the-art conventional medicine research. All of this has already been known. It's literally been written down for 6,000 years. People who study Ayurvedic medicine look like they have all the answers. And it's because they essentially do at a foundational level because they got them from a practice of medicine, the original form of medicine, 6,000 years ago. So if it looks like, well, how do you know this information? How did you know it 3 years ago when you did that podcast on that? Here's why. I've studied Ayurvedic medicine. It's not my medicine, right? I didn't invent any of this. We've always known it. Just keep that in mind in the back of your head because all this matches up perfectly. I can't go back and re-record that podcast. It's already been done, right? I don't take anything back. So here we go. First, up until age 1. The second phase until age 20. Basically, what Ayurveda does is it counts the infancy through the early 20s as the kapha-based stage. It is dictated by anabolism, by growth. Okay, interesting here. The next one is that from ages 20 to 60, it holds steady. We call that the pitta-based stage. Now, it holds steady, but what they don't tell you in this research is that there's a gradual slow of about 3% per year. All right, about 3% gradual decline in metabolic rate. So what you're doing is just looking at how many calories you can take in versus energy expenditure. And that goes down a little bit with each year. Again, I've quoted this research many times before. On average, it affects women more than men. Women lose on average 5 pounds of muscle mass per decade after about the age of 27 years old. That means you're losing about a half a pound of muscle per year. Not a good thing because what? After 20 years, you've lost 10 pounds of muscle. After 30 years, 15 pounds of muscle. That dramatically slows your metabolic rate. Really important, which is why women and men need to be doing weight training 2 to 3 times a week. It could be body weight, but you need to push yourself to be able to keep that muscle on. Really, really important. All right. So, and it's interesting too, because they actually found in this research, when they controlled for body size and the amount of muscle people have, they found no difference between men and women. So that's interesting. And then now, so that's the pitta stage. Now, in the last group in the study, right, we've got 0 to 1, 1 to 20, 20 to 60. The last group is 60 plus. They found that in this group, this is where metabolism begins to greatly decline. 0.7% per year. You might say, well, that doesn't sound like that much. Well, you're talking about like 7% now per decade, every single decade. Really important to look at that statistic because it's much more rapid. It's more than twice as much. It's about 3 times as much, almost 2.5 times as much is from 20 to 60 years old. And again, it's gradually happening. It doesn't be like, oh, you turn 60, now that's it. No, it's not that. That's why I need to get into this last part in a minute on biology, because this is what they glazed over. Conventional medicine loves to glaze over the outliers. They love to glaze over it. While metabolic rate patterns hold for the general population, individuals vary. Some have a metabolic rate that's 25% higher than others. Really interesting when you look at this, because these are the people that biologically are 20, 25, 30 years younger biologically than their peers. This means a 75-year-old has a biological age of around 50. A 45-year-old might have that of someone that's 20, 25. I see this every single day in my practice. I want you to understand that about 2/3 of the population is overweight, more than 1/3 obese, more than 1/3 of our children now are overweight and obese, more than about 1/5 or 20 to 25% of our population has some type of autoimmune issue. 1 out of 2 people will die of cardiovascular issues. 1 out of 2 to 3 for high blood pressure or diabetes complications. And about 1 out of 3 will get cancer. By 2030, it's said to be 1 out of 2. You have to understand that that's the majority of the population. That is who they're studying. You are not. If you're listening to this podcast, you might have a dis-ease of the body. You might be overweight. That's okay. It's okay. But you're able to change that. And when you do, you are no longer a part of the general population. You are part of the population that can be 25 years younger. And you might say, well, this is an anomaly. It's not. The average individual for a male in this country, in the US at least, will live to 74 years old. It's not wildly different around the world. Average woman will live to 77. People with cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure, etc., will die in their late 60s. This is not a good thing. If you don't have those things and you go 65 and you add on 20 years, you live to 85. If you add on 5 more, you live to 90. You might say, well, this isn't realistic. You have to understand, the average age is 74 to 77 with all of these dis-eases of the body. They found that if people don't die from cardiovascular risk, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, or cancer, those 4, I've talked about this many times, then they live another 10 years, 88, 87, 88 years old. We just added essentially 25 years to those people with main diseases, and we added at least another 10 to 15 years for even just the average life expectancy. You can be an outlier. You can have a lower biological age. You can burn more calories. Just in terms of calories, which is what they looked at as well in terms of metabolism. If you're 25% higher than the average population, you eat 2,000 calories a day, where the average person can only eat 1,500. That's an enormous difference. 25% of 2,000 is 500 calories, right? I want to make sure I'm giving you the proper information. 2,000 times 0.25, it's 500, right? Well, if you don't have that, then you're at the 1,500. 500 calories is a full meal. Like, that's an extra whole meal. That means you're less likely to gain weight. You're more adapted to be able to have a flex meal. You're more able to miss a workout for a day. You want to be that 25% outlier, and you can be. But what you need to do is balance any dis-eases of the body right now, and those dis-eases show up as symptoms. So what I want you to do is figure out why you're out of balance. You can do that with at-home functional medicine lab testing for your gut, for your hormones, for your blood sugar, for your omega-3s, for heavy metals, anything. I love to run the big 5. If you can only start with one combo, do the starter kit. But you have to figure out what it is that's keeping you imbalanced. Then you need to work a plan, a protocol. Then you maintain that, and you don't have to do a ton of work. You don't. Not to be an outlier. You don't. You just can't be part of the 2/3 of the population right now. So here's what I want you to do. If you haven't read my book, The Rain Barrel Effect, it's completely free now. Literally, you just pay shipping and handling. That's at StephenCabral.com. I have plenty more podcasts that will teach you all of these other things as well for free. When you feel ready, then I want you to take that first at-home lab test. I want you to figure out what your underlying imbalances are. You'll get your own plan, then you'll be able to move forward. And you don't have to work with me and my team. You can work with any integrative health practitioner out there, okay? My team is over at equi.life, EQUI.life. All the integrative health practitioners in the world out there are at integrativehealthpractitioner.org, okay? You can work with a local one, you can work with a virtual, whatever you prefer. What I want you to understand is this. You don't have to be a statistic. You can be an outlier. I want you to be an outlier. Outliers are amazing, and they're the ones that I look up to as well in my practice. So I have plenty of role models. I hope you look up to other role models as well. Shoot for that. You can attain it. And of course, if I can ever help in any way, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to do that. DMs through Instagram, StephenCabral.com/text, whatever works for you. We're happy to help. All right. Take care, everyone. Have an amazing day. I'll link everything up today at 2042, StephenCabral.com/2042, the new research. And of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve.